Welcome to Conversations with Educators. I'm your host, Jerome Ellison, and today I have a special guest, Queinnise Miller. Thank you, Queinnise, for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored and excited.
Thank you. Before we start, I definitely want to give a shout out to your book, and we're going to touch on it some more during the conversation. The Art of Giving a Shit, Memoir and Guidebook for Urban Educators. We'll definitely touch on it moving forward. But I would like to start with a quick game that I usually play. It's called Start, Bench, and Cut. So I'm going to give you 3 topics. The thing you like the most, you'll start. The thing you like the second most, you'll bench. And the thing you like the least, you'll cut. It's like a team. All right. So I want you to think about your school experience. So which one would you start, bench, or cut as a student? Your elementary school experience, your middle school experience, or your high school experience, and why?
Ooh, start, bench, or cut. This is bench, right?
You can start, bench, or cut, whatever one you want to.
Either one. Okay, so I'm gonna definitely start my elementary school experience just because I had phenomenal teachers that I think really set the foundation for me. I'm going to bench my high school experience. High school is wonderful, but I didn't have great teachers in high school, but at the same time, it was so much fun and socially, you know what I mean? That is when you just kind of come into who you are a little bit more. And definitely I'm cutting middle school. First of all, I don't even remember middle school because my brain didn't work. And so I remember a few things. I remember maybe one boyfriend, I remember one teacher, and I remember playing basketball. No, trying to play basketball. So definitely cutting middle school.
Yeah, a lot of people say that middle school is some of the hardest, worst years, but they make us stronger for sure. Definitely. So my next question is pertaining to your book. So why did you write this book? What made you want to write this book, The Art of Giving a Shit?
Well, the reason why I wrote it was to really just initially share my experience as a teacher with other people, to help people, right? I don't think that we have enough literature out there where people are sharing their authentic experience as an educator. And then it kind of evolved to this space of, not just sharing my experience because I was a Spanish teacher, but really giving some tools and some perspectives and some things that teachers can take away to actually use in their classroom, some strategies, etc. Now, the title, however, it's a little controversial because I don't know any education books that have, such harsh words. But the reason why is I needed to get people's attention. The premise and the purpose of the book is really to talk about loving children and caring for children, specifically urban children, Black, brown, poor, disenfranchised, language learners. Those are the ones that I want to get everyone's attention for. So I want people to clutch their pearls. I want people to be uncomfortable because you need to understand the gravity of what it is. If you want to come into our schools and to impact our babies, you need to understand what that means. So, the art of giving a shit. And I have a friend, because you have to give a shit. And I have a friend who, is a mom, and she was just talking about the teacher and how the teacher only cared about them as a scholar and academically, but wasn't paying attention to them, her son as a human, as a adolescent, as a boy. And she was like, she just doesn't give a shit. And I was like, bingo.
Yep.
You got to give a shit if you're going to be a teacher or an educator of any kind.
I love that. I think I say that all the time. And I think when you really care, students pick up on it. Students know the teachers who really care and the ones who don't. And especially when we have some challenging students, right? If you care about them and you're able to work with them and see past their behavior, see past some of their weaknesses, they'll buy into you and they'll give you their best effort because they know you care, right? And when you start to ask them questions about their family life, their interests outside of school, then they'll know that you care about them as a person. And then you have a good chance of reaching them and getting them to where you need them to be. And one thing that stood out during this pandemic is we've realized that academics are to the back. You know, the front burner has to be social emotional learning and caring about the kid.
Absolutely.
Because if we can't get that right, if we can't support kids of who they are, there's no way we can get them to learn the academics, because this comes first. So I love that idea of giving a shit, because when you care about them, it can change the trajectory of a kid's experience in school, because they want to come there and they know that they have somebody to lean on when in time of need.
Absolutely, it is the difference. You make that makes the entire difference. So
Definitely.
You're right.
Definitely. So if we focus on let's focus on teacher, right, an educator, right? What do you say is the main difference between a teacher, what is something that a teacher who really cares, that gives a shit, does, compared to a teacher who doesn't really care and is just there because it's a job or a career?
Great question. So there's a few queens of culturally relevant or responsive teaching in theory. Okay, so I am a PhD nerd, and so it comes out every now and then. But there's a few women. You've got Gloria Ladson Billings, you've got Lisa Delpit, you've got Nell Noddings, and one of my favorites, Dr. Tyrone Tanner. He's here out of Texas. He's an amazing culturally responsive leader, expert in the field. But one of my favorites, the grand dame of them for me, is Geneva Gay. And Geneva Gay has this concept where she talks about a difference between educators who care for children and educators who care about children. So let me explain the difference, right? So people who care for someone, there's this active engagement in the things that you do for them. It's not just, you don't just say it, your actions, right? Because love is an action. Love is a verb, okay? But then you've got teachers who care about children, and those teachers, they care about them, but they're not willing to actually do something different for them, for do something different or sacrifice themselves, or, for example, I care for my children, and I go to work every day. I make sure that they have shelter, that they have food, that they have, whatever it is that they need to be whole and happy. I do the work for that. I care about the environment. Global warming is real, and I do care about it, but I still get in my car every single day. And even though that my car is bad for the environment, I still get in it every single day, and I don't think twice about it. Does that make sense?
I love that. I love that.
So you got a teacher that gives a shit is someone that is going to actively love. They're going to put the human first before they put the content. They're going to sacrifice what they think and what they want. And I talk about that in my book, how it's not about me. It's about what do they need, and then I shift for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so in the book, that's really what the book is about. Like, I was a Spanish teacher, and I really was excited about hablando en español and teaching Spanish, but they didn't really care about Spanish. They needed credit. So I had to shift myself, my teacher-centered self. And a teacher that cares about that does not give a shit or cares about children, they're going to be compliant. They're going to, this is what I'm doing in my classroom, and everyone else needs to get on my page. They are going to put pedagogy over people. Woo!
That's real.
That's the difference.
That's real. And I think that's so true. And I think as an educator, what are you doing, right? You can talk the talk, you can say the lingo, but where are your actions to back up that those ideas? What are you doing to advocate for the needs of the students, especially students, Black and brown students, who are often, underserved in the school system? What are you doing? Are you speaking up for them? Are you reaching out to parents and giving them resources to help their child? What are you doing to prove that you're about that, right? Like you said, are you still driving in that car, in that gasoline car, or are you going to make the switch to an electric vehicle or something more environmentally friendly? I love that comparison. I think your actions have to match up your words. And I think a lot of us sometimes do a lot of talking, and we have to put more action behind it, because now more than ever, our kids need us. And I think the action needs to happen for sure. Absolutely. I love that. So based on your experience in the school system, what do you think is something that should be either added or changed, or we should do more of in order to get more teachers who actually care or give a shit, right? How can we promote more, hire and keep more teachers who actually care, because it's hard, right? A lot of teachers who end up with that mentality, who come in really, really caring and end up burning out because it's overwhelming. The system can be overwhelming. So what do you think needs to change to prevent the turnover?
That's a really good question, Jerome. So the first thing is, we as educational leaders have to be honest about what the job is. So I came in just, needing a job at 22 years old, right? I didn't really know what I was getting into. And I think that not just when they come into the job, but even as they prepare for the job in preparation programs in the university levels or alternative certification programs, we've got to be honest about the job. See, there's this fine print, right? That, you look at the description of a teacher and it's like, be able to teach. It's about teaching and learning, about pedagogy, about, assessment and all these different things. But the fine print basically is, okay, you're not just a teacher. You're going to be a mother. You're going to be a father. You're going to be a mentor. You may have to be a counselor. You may have to be a friend. You know what? You're going to have to wipe noses. You need to give hugs. You're going to have to be a social worker. You're going to have to be an like, you got to be honest about the job. They may call you a bitch, and you know what? I'm going to need you to still love them through that. Like, I could go on and on about it, really, but we've got to be honest about the job.
Yes.
And then the second thing is, and again, I'm very honest. That's one thing you're going to get from Queinnise is honesty and transparency. Is we've got to eliminate the accountability pressures that teachers have, so that they can safely love and authentically teach.
I love that.
And people don't like me, but that's the truth. Teachers don't feel safe to truly do what's best for children, because they also have children to take care of. So they want to make sure that they do their job and that they're compliant, that their test scores are a certain place so that they are safe. And because of that, they struggle with being able to say, you know what, we're not going to talk about this standard today because I'm really feeling the energy in the classroom and it's not real positive. Like, we're going to stop and we're going to talk about what's going on, and we're going to have us a restorative circle really quickly, so that we can address the energy in the room. See, teachers don't feel safe to do that, but it's neat.
That's what they need.
The third thing that I think is important to build this network is leaders have to care first, right? And hold teachers accountable for building strong relationships and authentic relationships with children. And so first, if leadership doesn't model what that looks like, so as a principal, one of the things that I do, as a staff meeting is we're going to actually talk about self-care and self-love, and we're going to breathe, and we're going to talk about mindfulness, because you need that so that you can continue to give out. Yes. So if leadership doesn't care, and model that, then teachers won't feel like they have the ability, or they won't feel free to do so. And then leaders have to hold teachers accountable for these relationships. So the same accountability that we hold teachers for in terms of academic success should be an equal accountability for the relationship that they have with those children and what they're doing to build that bond with children and parents, right? And hold them accountable for doing what's best for kids and not what's convenient for them. It's easy. This is not about us. Education is not about us, not about the principal. It's not about the teacher. It's not about the assistant superintendents. It's about children. And if we don't really take that seriously, then we are going to lose a generation. Our children are not being successful, but they're being held accountable for it. And when in actuality, the accountability lies with us.
Whew, I love that. You made so many great points. A couple of things that stood out is I think all teachers, as far as building relationships with kids, especially with our Black and brown students, I think all teachers need to be held accountable. Back to my point about burnout, one thing I noticed is, a lot of teachers of color end up leaving the system within 5 years because they get burnt out, because a lot of times they're the only ones being pushed and forced to build relationships with our students, our Black and brown students. And at a point, it becomes overwhelming because you have that, and you also have the load of teaching the academics. So I think if we share that responsibility amongst all teachers, all educators, and I think that will be a little easier and can keep some of our Black and brown educators in the school building. And also the thing you said about testing, right? Teachers always say, I know this is important work as far as social emotional learning and building relationships, but there's no time. I have to get them ready for the test. And that's one thing that we have to pull back, because like I said before, more than ever, we see that if you push the test aside and focus on the social emotional learning and focus on building relationships with the kids and self-care and making sure they take care of themselves mentally, they can grow and they can be productive citizens in the world. But if we don't support them in that area, there's no way they're going to achieve, no matter how, even the students who have high academics, if they're not strong in those areas, they'll break down eventually because they don't have the mental stamina and tools to deal with the social emotional aspect of life. You know?
Absolutely. And that is what my book is all about. How are we preparing them for not just classrooms, but for life, right? One of the things that I don't directly say this, but one of the questions is, what residual impacts are you making? Right? So what are you doing that when they leave middle school or high school, it's still going to make a positive impact on their life. It's something you're teaching them that's going to make a difference for life, right? Like, and if you're not making residual impacts, like you just got to ask yourself, like, why am I here? What are you doing?
Yeah. Because people say this all the time about education, right? It's like, well, after a certain grade, I don't use any of the stuff I've learned after a certain grade, right? But if we start teaching life skills, things that they can apply forever, things that help them navigate through the world, those stuff transfer whatever field you get into, whatever career you choose, those skills are going to be lifelong skills that you can apply forever. And I think we need to lean a little more toward those life skills. You know?
Absolutely. I can't wait for you to read the book. You're gonna.
I'm gonna finish. I just started it, but I'm definitely gonna finish. I feel like I'm gonna see so many connections between our conversation and the book, which is great. My next question is, if you had one piece of advice to give to a new teacher entering the field of education, what piece of advice would you give them and why?
Okay, so I'm gonna layer this a little bit.
Okay.
The number one thing I would tell them is love children, and the rest will take care of itself. This is God's work, Jerome. Period. Dot. And God is love. And when you understand that and know that, then everything literally will take care of itself. And I know it may not seem like it, but it will. And as a teacher, you know, there's 3 things in my book that I talk about that are important for a teacher to be able to survive this work. And the first thing is to pray. I cannot tell you enough. This work is heavy. If you're doing it right, it's heavy emotionally, it's heavy physically, it's heavy mentally, it's heavy. And if you don't have, and I don't care what your spiritual background preference is, you have to understand that you need someone higher, stronger, bigger than you to be able to get you through this work and to get you through it in the way in which you need to do it, right? Loving children. Second thing is checks and balances. This work, because of the gravity and the heaviness of it, it's a withdrawal space. When you go to do this work as an educator, whether you're a leader, a teacher, a support staff member, whatever it is you do in that building with children, it's withdrawing. The kids withdraw, the parents withdraw, the leadership withdraws from teachers, the district withdraws from principals. It's a withdrawing. And so one of the things that teachers and educators need to do is have a checks and balances and have a way to pour into you. Because if you don't have anything in you, you can't give anything, right? And then the last thing is to remember your why. Why do you do this? Because there's so much that you can get inundated with in this work, and it's frustrating. It's very frustrating at times. And so you got to remember why you do this. Why are you in this seat? Because I believe that the same way God chooses parents for children, he chooses teachers for children. And you got to know that you are there not to make always an academic difference, but to make a life difference. And if you don't remember that, then it will take you over. And I've seen really, really good teachers leave the field because they just are overwhelmed and they just don't have any more to give. And they want to do right by children, but they're not in a space or an environment that is conducive to that. And unfortunately, children are the ones that are disserviced by that. So that would be my advice.
That's great advice. That's so true, so real. I feel like knowing your why is like your compass, right? So you get off track, you get pulled left or right, but if you know your why, it puts you right back on track, and you can stay the course. You know?
Absolutely.
For sure. Last segment. This one is called Choose Your Teachers Wisely. So this is your chance to give a shout out. As you know, education happens in schools and definitely outside of schools. So who is one person or one thing, either or, who has educated you to be a better person? Just pick one person or thing you would give a shout out to.
To be a better person?
To be a better person.
Oh, that's so hard. I am going to shout out. Oh, that's so hard.
Pick one.
Just one?
Just one.
Okay. Someone that inspires me to be a better person, I would say I'm going to shout my mother out.
I love that.
Her and I, we have our moments and our times, but one of the things that she has done my entire life is model for me what love looks like in action. And I come from a single parent home, and my dad and my mom and my stepmom worked really, really well together, not doing what was best for them, but what was best for me. And they, all taught me what the real meaning of loving someone meant. And so my mother, though, she could have taken a lot of different ways. She didn't, because she thought about me first. So she definitely inspires me to love harder, to love more, and to love more authentically to everyone that I come into contact with.
I love that. Thank you, Queinnise, for coming on the show. I appreciate you so much. You share so much great insight and advice and information that so many people can love and learn from. So I appreciate you so much. I want to shout out your book one more time, The Art of Giving a Shit. Please get this book. It is great. I just started it, but I can tell it's going to be great just based off this conversation. And yeah, thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you guys for watching. Stay blessed. And remember, education over everything. Bye.
Bye.